Welcome to the Crypto Show, and I am quite blessed to have two of, I guess, the best pieces of information that I need about 9/11, and that's Richard Gage with AE 9/11, Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, and James Corbett, who's given some great talks about 9/11 and a lot of other information. And he's got some snazzy jackets that say, the NSA, the only part of government that really listens.
I'm glad you remember that one. That one's faded, so you can't even read it anymore, but I still have it.
I never heard it.
My co-host that was on the show then was just very envious of that jacket. So, and it's true, you know. And there's another one out that's out right now. It's not gay if it's the TSA talking about those pat downs when you go through the airport. But enough of the juvenile fun here. Let's talk about 911, and I'm not talking about a Porsche or the number on the side of the cop car that you call when you want to get your ass beat or your dog shot. Let's talk about 9/11, September 11th. Richard, tell me about Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. What do you hope to accomplish with this, and just tell me some of the meat and bones on that.
Well, I'd been an architect for 20 years, a member of the American Institute of Architects and founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. 2006, I was just shocked to hear on the radio from KPFA in Berkeley, Bonnie Faulkner's Guns and Butter program. David Ray Griffin was being interviewed. He's now written 10 books on this subject of 9/11 Truth. I had never heard that a third tower came down. For instance, I'd never heard that there was massive explosions heard by hundreds and hundreds of witnesses. I had never heard that there was molten iron in the aftermath of all three World Trade Center skyscrapers. This was all a shock to me, and I go, well, I would have heard about it. I'm an architect. We haven't been issued one bulletin from the American Institute of Architects and 80,000 members, not one bulletin on the third worst structural failure in modern history. So I had to do some research. I found out that this was actually true. The stuff that I was hearing that we'd not seen on the mainstream media, not seen on CNN. So here I am, a flag-waving Republican, right? Determined to go and get these bastards who did this to us on 9/11. But here, 5 years later, after getting over my shock, I guess, of the shock and awe that we were put through as American citizens on 9/11, we didn't question what was happening when those towers came down. It was a waterfall, right? So it wasn't a collapse of a building. It was hundreds and hundreds of explosions, and that's what the evidence showed. And I took this to my the firm I worked for at the time. And 15 architects came. I bought them pizza. All of them were convinced by the PowerPoint that I had borrowed from Stephen Jones and reconfigured. They became the first 15 architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. We now have 3,000. So the key element there is Building 7. The third tower that collapsed that nobody knows about. Very few people, very few architects and engineers, they don't know anything about it. We go to the conventions, we show them on the screen, this third tower came down. We ask, what's happening to this building? They go, oh, that's a controlled demolition. They recognize it instantly, just like the old hotels in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
And I go, did you know when that happened? And they go, what do you mean? No, it happened on 9/11. They go, no, that's not a twin tower. I know what the twin towers look. No, it's not. It's the third tower. So we start there. We show them the evidence, not just the building itself coming down, which is obvious because it comes down at free fall acceleration, straight down, uniformly, symmetrically into its own footprint in under 7 seconds, just like as fast as a bowling ball falling out of the sky. So nothing to resist it, i.e. the 40,000 tons of structural steel in the building. So now their minds are open to the possibility that the Twin Towers might have some mystery to it as well. And we go through that evidence with them too, which includes incendiary destruction, forensic evidence of incendiaries, hundreds of witnesses of explosives. And that's what we're doing here at Anarchapulco, presenting to everybody.
You know, I don't think I heard about Building 7 until probably late 2011 when I started I was a Ron Paul delegate, and so I started getting into that crowd, and of course I'm going to be exposed to Building 7. And one of the things that one day I'm thinking, like, wow, I wonder what was in that building. So I started Googling it. I'm like, what were the offices? What offices were in that building? And I was surprised, like about half or so, there was a very large number of offices that were, 3-letter government agencies. And
It's true. James, you probably have some more relevant information there.
Yes, not off the top of my head, but I do know that there were a number of agencies that had offices in WTC 7. Most notably, off the top of my head, I mean, obviously CIA and IRS and things like that, which had also ongoing investigations into Enron and other sensitive documents that they say were destroyed as the building collapsed. Oh well. But the emergency management bunker for the New York City was located in WT7, which was a very controversial move at the time when it was done in the 1990s under the stewardship of Mayor Giuliani and his henchmen. And people were saying, why would you put it directly across the street from the last terrorist target of the 93 World Trade Center bombing? Is that where you want your emergency management center? Yes, of course, that's where we want it. And strangely enough, yeah, that did seem to be a bad place.
This is information I didn't know. It was placed there after the first attempt by
exactly
Bin Laden.
Yeah. I can't remember where they had it originally, but then, yeah, they built a new one. It's purpose-built in World Trade Center Building 7.
And oddly enough, they abandoned that bunker before the towers came down.
Yes, and Giuliani said in an interview that is recorded, I believe, on ABC, that we were told the building was going to come down, so we went out.
Wow.
Foreknowledge. There's lots of foreknowledge of these buildings coming down.
I'm pretty sure, through some of my research, I believe that Wonder Woman is actually the one who hit the Pentagon, because it's one of the most secure places on the planet, and there is no video of that plane hitting, so it had to be Wonder Woman.
What do you think, James?
That's a theory. That's a theory. It's about as plausible as the official 9/11 commission report, so I guess we'll have to go with it. But yes, you're correct. That is, one would presume, a heavily fortified and heavily protected building, heavily sensitive airspace. One would think that it would be rather difficult to fly 4 planes wildly off course for over an hour without being intercepted by a single fighter interceptor in all of that time. And there are many reasons that have been given for why that did not happen. But one thing that I examined in my documentary on 9/11 war games were the incredible number of reasons that various fighters that would otherwise have been stationed in the East Coast, the Northeast Air Defense Sector of NORAD, were moved to the Western United States, to Alaska, even over to Europe for various war games that were going on around that time. And so the airspace was oddly undefended that morning.
Wow. And the one that didn't make it, do you have any theories or information on the one that just...
I could speculate, but it would only be speculation.
You mean where it was heading?
Yeah, where it was heading.
When it went down in Shanksville.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a hole in the ground with no bodies, no blood.
Trees still standing.
Maybe couple airplane parts. They said it went down into the soft ground, but they chose not to dig it up because of the sanctity of the bodies they would be disturbing. I think that's the story that I heard.
Wow, I've never even heard that excuse. Yeah, all right.
It's like, excuse me.
Were there any?
Isn't that federally mandated that they have to try to reconstruct as much as they can?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so too. And from Ground Zero, they were allegedly removing all of the debris. And so the firefighters and whoever went in there with these torches, and they cut loose all the metal. And they had a lot of extra time. I think they may have been union workers, because I noticed that some of the cuts were at 45-degree angles. And, they want you to know it. They put it right in your face. If you go to Ground Zero, you go to the museum, there's a window with these smudges on it that are just about nose high, where the tour guide will take you and say, you see right here, this is the column where the firefighters had to remove the columns, blah, blah, blah. There's these 2 columns side by side that have perfect 45-degree angle cuts at exactly the same height. and there's very little slag around the edges, and it looks a little odd.
They use 45-degree cuts, of course, in controlled demolition. That allows one column to the top part of the column to fall off or be kicked off by side-induced explosive action
To cause pancaking.
so they don't bind on each other as it's coming down. Yeah, that allows the floors to come down at free fall acceleration. In the case of Building 7, that can't happen without removing all 81 columns in that building floor by floor. That means not one column gave any resistance to the collapse of this building, and for at least 8 floors. And yet, and that's what allows the building to come down symmetrically. You know, any deviation in that pattern, the building would begin to fall over. And that's when, not that we've ever had any fire in the history before 9/11 of causing a collapse of a steel frame skyscraper, but and we've had hundreds of examples, well, at least 100 of very hot, large, and long-lasting fires in these buildings. And these fires weren't, in the case of the Twin Towers, they were virtually out. Thick black smoke indicating oxygen-starved cooler fires. In the case of Building 7, you have some relatively small fires compared to the larger fires that have been in these skyscrapers before 9/11.
So the steel that I looked at, it looked to be about 1.5 inches, maybe almost 2 inches thick on these columns.
Well, at the bottom, they're about almost solid steel. And at the top, they're only, they diminish as you go up in thickness to about 3/8 inch thick.
Well,
so the top part is the lightest part.
Right.
And yet we're told, the official story says, above the point of jet plane impacts, the top part drove the rest of the building down to the ground and then destroyed itself. So that's like saying a Volkswagen can run into a Mack truck and destroy the Mack truck.
Jet fuel sounds like something that would be really hot, but it's actually somewhere between diesel and gasoline. It's basically kerosene.
Yeah,
it doesn't really burn that hot. You put it in your house in a little heater.
The manufacturer says that jet fuel burns 600 degrees maximum Fahrenheit in open in open air.
Well, so what kind of temperature do I need to burn through that 1 inch of steel at that perfect angle?
Yeah, you need somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 degrees. I mean, we're talking 4, 5, 6 times hotter than hydrocarbons, which is jet fuel, and offices and desks and chairs can even burn. So we have all of this evidence of molten iron is what it turned out. It's not molten steel per se, but molten iron is used by thermite incendiaries to cut through steel like a hot knife through butter, particularly with the patented devices that we have now, or prior to 9/11, that are designed and patented to cut through steel in millionths of a second, with streams of molten iron, much more effective than high energy explosives like C4 or RDX. But those give incredible audio signatures, blasts, and visual signatures, flashes that would be seen by everybody. So they didn't opt for that particular technology. So apparently that's why they decided to use thermite. Also, it cuts through much thicker sections of steel.
So basically the mass public has never heard of Building 7 until recently. Now everybody kind of knows about it. And almost no one knows that Donald Rumsfeld made a big announcement the day before. And so give me some numbers. It was 2.3 trillion missing from where?
Let's go to James.
Yes, that's right. So on September 10th, 2001, Donald Rumsfeld had a press conference in which he announced a new war that the Pentagon was declaring, not a war on terror, but a war on bureaucracy, because the Pentagon cannot account for $2.3 trillion in transactions, which is a staggering number considering the Pentagon's entire budget. I don't know in fiscal 2001 what it would have been, but it would have been in hundreds of millions. How could you lose trillions of dollars? Well, it's because our accounting software is old and it doesn't talk to the other accounting software very well, so double entries and all this kind of thing. Now, it's particularly amazing to see Donald Rumsfeld on September 10th, 2001, saying in a press conference, well, you may ask, how can a defense secretary attack the Pentagon or something like that? I can't remember the exact quote. Please look it up. It's an actual quote that I put in my documentary, 9/11 Trillions. But nonetheless, that was what was announced on September 10th. It wasn't the first time that issue had been raised. That issue was a known issue from at least a year prior. Rumsfeld was asked about it during his confirmation hearings to become Secretary of Defense back in January of 2001, and they were talking about it at that time. So it was a known issue, but he did go out of his way to hold a press conference on September 10th, 2001 to, I guess, let the world know about this issue.
I wonder what time of day it was. I mean, was it late in the day?
That's a good question.
And then by tomorrow morning, everyone has actually just forgotten. I don't think I ever even heard of it again on.
I don't think I heard about it at the time. You'd think that would be a pretty big story.
I remember seeing it on television, but
well, it would have been reported the next day. Yeah. But something else was reported the next day.
And then it played and played and played for months and months on end, and you never heard anything again about the missing $2.3 trillion. That is insane.
Well, to be fair, it has been reported, and it's an ongoing issue, and now it's up to
by people like yourself,
by
people like yourself, but from the idiot box that we all have in our living room, we never heard again on there.
Well, you notice that the Pentagon has been required by law to actually produce balanced books for the last 2 decades and have failed to do so. But they were going to do it last year, and they failed again. But they were going to do it this year. But the most recent, just a couple of months ago, they came out. I believe that I can't remember off the top of my head, but the number's up to something even more incredible now. It's in the 20s or maybe even $30 trillion at this point that they can't account for.
And the reason, in addition to that, the reason that 9/11 is still so important 18 years later, it started a $6.5 trillion global war on terror, which our grandchildren will be paying for if there's still a government in existence by then, because we could be going bankrupt as a result of that.
Weapons of mass distraction.
Weapons. we
had to do that. I mean, they had weapons. Like North Korea shoots a missile every other day, but forget them. We're not going to invade them at all.
Right. Well, we've also killed 2 million Muslims, which 9/11 was blamed on. And yet the evidence shows that the forensic evidence shows that this is obviously some sort of an inside operation. I mean, that's very clear. And so what was the motive? Well, you look at the goals of the Project for a New American Century, which James could highlight quite well. You look at the Patriot Act, the Military Commissions Act, the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012, which demolished our civil liberties. And the amendments that our fathers
1021, Section 1021. Or
I don't know about that, but any of us can be arrested for the use of force or terrorism, which is not even defined. So some of us who are speaking out on this issue are quite concerned, because many have been arrested unjustly for speaking truths and disclosing what are redefined as state secrets. So we have real problems today if people think 9/11 is not relevant.
Packaging. Let's talk about packaging. How successful are you at getting your message out with AE 9/11? How do people take that information? Is it hard when you have your hardcore brainwashed statist who just doesn't want to accept it? They want to, well, like James's talk yesterday, do they just fall in church and start worshiping the state and deny that this real information even exists?
There's so many different kinds of people. There's people who won't look at it because they can't conceive of their government as being capable of doing something like this. And of course, it's not the government in totality. It's rogue groups of organized criminal activity within the government and outside the government that appear to be responsible, as researched by James and others, including Kevin Ryan. Another 19 Suspects is the name of the book that he wrote on this subject. Anything to add on that?
Well, I just wanted I mean, the point I'm getting to here is like the information that you have is fantastic, and if you can capture somebody and sit them in that room, like the woman I came here with, she came here 2 years ago to study yoga and learn about Bitcoin. And then she walked in here and started hearing all this information, and it blew her mind. Now she lives in an RV and has an AR-15, right? But you can't just capture the masses and get them to listen to this. But James is fucking brilliant with his comical sarcasm and the way that you can take that message and make it funny and actually get someone to say, yeah, okay. And they'll sit, because his delivery is so funny, they will sit through all of his information just to hear the next punchline.
Oh, and share the name of this YouTube video that you made. It's a real short one.
It was called 9/11: A Conspiracy Theory, but it's all over the net under many titles, 9/11 in 5 minutes or what have you. Yeah, and that was surprising to me because I created that video basically as an inside joke for the 9/11 Truth community. I did not think anyone outside the 9/11 Truth community would even understand anything that I was saying. So so that one really caught me by surprise when it took off and went viral, and millions and millions of views later, and it's still the thing that a lot of people know me for, which speaks to the incredible efficacy of comedy in disarming people's defenses against new information. Having said that, there are, as you say, there are different types of people that respond to different things. I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all solution for this.
Right.
And my methods are really good at connecting with certain people, but other people don't like my style. I think Richard has done. Ooh. Oh.
We got you unplugged somehow.
Yep. I got unplugged.
We all got unplugged.
Oh, shit. Sorry. I just
Hopefully
ruined your
you
show.
can still hear us.
Hey.
There we go. Back on.
As I was saying before I judo chopped the cord here, Richard, I think you've done incredible work at putting this in a format that's for professionals and for architects and for people with that kind of mind. There's no way that they can sit through your presentation and not at least question what they have been told about.
We get 95 to 100% of them in those contexts.
Yeah, of course. And that's not surprising at all because the way you've structured your presentation, I mean, it's extremely powerful.
After that video, did that change the way you decided to deliver your message after that? I mean, because a lot more of your stuff after that is pretty funny too.
Some of the stuff before it was. It's just an aspect of me. I did a video in 2000. When did the WTC7 report come out? 2008.
Oh yes.
Report. Yeah,
August
2008. I did a video. What was it called? Emergency warning for office workers, I think. And it was a public service announcement that warning, ordinary office fires can cause the complete spontaneous free fall acceleration collapse of your office building. So I've been doing comedy type things since the beginning because it's just part of who I am. If I didn't reflect who I was, it would be an inauthentic persona I was putting on or something, and people wouldn't respond to it. So that's what I think when it comes to how do you package this information. Right. I think if you start strategizing too much, you lose the authenticity. So just be you, and you will connect with some people. You will not connect with others, but don't worry about that. You'll connect with who you connect with.
People open up in their own time. Sometimes it takes 3 or more hits to this information. The third friend that comes up to them and says, "Did you hear about Building 7? Did you know a third tower came down in 9/11?" All of a sudden, it's like the term anarchy. We're with Anarchapulco here today.
I use the term free range capitalist, so it makes people feel like it's chicken. Free range capitalist.
Oh, that sounds more comforting because when I first heard the word anarchy, of course I'm thinking of
Molotov
Antifa,
cocktail.
Yeah, and black shirts and violence and people generally being assholes. That's not what I'm experiencing here at Anarchapulco. I see people that are dedicated to peaceful, voluntary, consensual relationships. I'm not referring to dating.
Yeah. Well, although there is a couple of classes here about that, probably.
Yeah, there's a wide range of activity, and I didn't know, I didn't know anything about anarchy before I was invited.
You used to come to Brave New Books. That was an anarchist bookstore in a basement below a bank.
And I didn't. When I saw some of those books, I just turned my head away because I'm on the conservative side myself. Half the people in the 9/11 Truth movement are more liberal, half of them are more conservative. We all love each other when it comes to 9/11 truth and getting the message out, because we all, each side of this equation, which is kind of a false equation, which has been used by the powers that be to manipulate each other into divisive camps that don't get anything done. But around 9/11 truth, we do get a lot done. And we did produce, for instance, a 4-year, $300,000 finite element analysis through the University of Alaska to analyze Building 7's behavior and the NIST report, which had come out in 2008. And in it, Professor Leroy Halsey, the head of their civil engineering department, one of the top forensic structural engineers in the country, completely pulled the rug out from underneath NIST, showing their assumptions to be false, if not fraudulent. And that it proved that this building came down due to a global collapse by the simultaneous failure of all the columns in the building at virtually the same time. That's the conclusion of this report.
The radio station that I used to be on, it was the pirate radio station in Austin. We ran a commercial about 9/11 truth about your book every 30 minutes for about 7 years.
Oh.
So, yeah, we were definitely pumping it out. So that was great, man. I really appreciate you guys' time. Do you have any thoughts on how people can spread your message, or if they want to start a YouTube channel, maybe to follow your lead, James? And
well, I'm interested about Richard and what I know you've put together some excellent video productions over the years. Have you thought about putting more emphasis on that, less emphasis on that? Are you going more for print, or what's your media strategy?
Yeah, we're making a film right now. Our supporters brought together $20,000 to have Dylan Avery, maker of Loose Change 9/11, and he is almost done with that film. It'll be done in a month when the final report comes out from the University of Alaska, and it's about that project.
Right.
So in a month, we're going to have a top quality cinematic version, original composition, etc. Dylan's been making award-winning films since Loose Change 9/11. So we're very excited for the Truth Movement that can take this film and just get it out everywhere, which will educate engineers, architects, as well as lay people about this. So we hope it'll go viral.
I hope so. That'll be available for free.
Yeah.
Have you guys, either of you, heard of Rachel McIntosh? And okay, she did media packaging for defense contractors in New York, and she was there during 9/11. And she said that her job was to take the narrative from the DOJ and repackage it like it was chicken to send out to the different networks, whether it be ABC, CBS, Fox, whatever. The narrative had to be twisted to fit whoever wanted to consume it. And that was her job. She said that on 9/11 that ABC News had a plane or a helicopter. The only thing that was in the air was the news helicopter, and they were delaying the live feed. They stopped playing the live video.
At what time?
During the crash. In New York.
In New York.
In New York, they were in the skies around the Twin Towers, flying around, but not broadcasting the live feed.
Yeah.
And what was the point of that?
Just that they were covering up all of.
A lot of that footage has come out, but I don't know specifically which chopper.
Yeah,
but I've seen some of the footage from the choppers that you can now see on YouTube. But,
right. But that was supposed to be a live feed, and they cut it. Yeah. They cut it and wouldn't show it then, so the stuff came out later. But I didn't know if you had heard of her. She's got quite a bit of information about what was going on with the defense contractors and stuff.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I should follow up on that.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. I love hearing from both of you. And guys, thanks for coming to Anarchapulco. It's good to see you back. You came, James came the first year, and this
Japan.
Is your first year.
Yeah, you don't have so far to come. You can't complain.
Yeah.
No, Acapulco is.
How's the jet lag, Richard? What, an hour different for you?
An hour is. It takes 20 hours to get here by the time you leave your home
Okay.
and then arrive here.
Yeah.
So it's still hard even for those that listen.
Okay. I'm not.
It took me 9 days. But
It took you 9 days.
Yeah,
Did you drive?
Did you walk?
No, I drove.
Okay.
And partied all along the way.
All right.
But I've been here 3 days and we haven't gotten to the beach, and I don't know if we will. It's just so much going on here at this conference.
Let's get the information on your website so people know where to find you.
Yeah, it's AE911truth.org. That's AE911truth.org. And please sign up for the newsletter. It go out twice a month, and get you in on the latest evidence and latest efforts we're making toward a real investigation. Go on YouTube and look for the video, free. 9/11 Explosive Evidence Experts Speak Out.
I'm at CorbettReport.com. That's CORBETT report.com. Type 9/11 into the search bar if you're interested in that subject specifically, or you can click on the Corbett Report documentaries on the sidebar and just explore some of the stuff that I've done on 9/11 and other stuff over the years. It's all there for free.
And last thing, what can we do about censorship in YouTube? Are you somewhere else right now trying to get around that problem? Because it's obviously going to be, especially with your content, it's obviously going to be a problem.
Well, get around. That's an interesting way of putting it. No, I think my strategy has always been to, actually, how long have I been doing it? I've been hosting the videos on my own servers for 9 years now. And most people don't get the video directly from my servers. Most people will go to YouTube or BitChute or some of the other alternatives, minds.com, that I'm posting to. But I think it's most important that I also have a copy of every video that I do on my own servers that until my website gets taken down will not be censored at any rate.
Right. And well, I mean, as far as monetization, are you being demonetized by?
Oh, I never monetized my YouTube channel. I never wanted Google's money, and I never thought that was going to be a sound strategy. And I'm glad, because I built up subscribers directly to my website from the beginning. And I was able to do this, and the demonetization doesn't affect me at all because I was never monetized.
Awesome.
But the deplatforming might.
Yeah.
And we're all concerned because YouTube has instituted a policy to reduce our exposure with their algorithms for 9/11 truth-based videos. So we're all looking for other solutions.
Float.
Because eventually we're going to be.
There's a new one coming out that's really friendly, and it helps you to monetize by people tipping you, not by advertising.
Yeah.
And it's called Float, FLOTE.
I just heard about that from Josh.
And it's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, it's an alternative, and it's run by people who don't want your information, and they're not trying to censor you whatsoever. So as long as you're not a baby raper.
Blockchain based too, I heard.
They're working on that. They haven't established that yet, but that's in the works. So.
It's currently hosted on central servers?
Yes, right now.
Okay.
But they're working on decentralizing that. The funding is the issue. So,
as always,
thanks so much for joining us, and please check these guys out on YouTube and at their websites. It's shocking.